Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again, back with more stories. In this video, the local police department blew up my house to catch a criminal, but then refused to compensate me and I basically became homeless. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, Police Demanded I Follow the Rules. Voluntary fire brigade station, small town in Germany. The station was near a street and you couldn't back up in the garage without blocking off the street because maneuvering in front of the station was nearly impossible. A firefighter was blocking the street for traffic when a driver in a Mercedes came along. He braked at first but then accelerated and forced the firefighter to jump out of his way to save his life or at least his bones. They went to the police and sued that driver. What they didn't know, the driver was the police chief of a station nearby and he sued the fire brigade himself. The fire brigade is not allowed to block the street, only the police is. What they did was Amtsanmaßung, aka impersonating an officer in this case. The case went on and on, till the brigade chief had an idea. If only the police is allowed to block the street, then they can do it from now on. Every time a truck leaves or arrives at the station, the police was called. Cleaning the trucks? Police. Fueling up? Police. Training? Police. Joyriding? Police. More joyriding? You know it. The local station had to get 2 more officers from other stations to handle the volume of the requests until the other chief was persuaded, or threatened, to take back his accusations. Since that day, no one ever complained about blocking off the street while backing up, and the relationship between police and fire brigade has normalized again. And yeah, Ripe stars, that might be a first, police versus fire brigade enacting malicious compliance upon each other. I've never seen that before in a story. Very interesting situation to say the least. Either way, the next one is another police malicious compliance story. So I was delivering furniture in Chicago. We pulled up at a loading zone to find a Mercedes-Benz parked there. We parked in the street alongside the Mercedes. It would be a few more steps getting the sofa around the car, but no big deal. It should be a quick in and out delivery and we'd be on our way. We came out a few minutes later to find an irate woman screaming at us for blocking her in with our truck. She demanded that we move the truck and threatened to call the police, and that is when my boss told her, "Call them right now, because I'm not moving the truck until they get here." That's probably when she remembered the sign above her car that said, "Loading zone, no parking." She suddenly turned into a completely different person. She apologized for losing her temper. She apologized for taking up the loading zone and making us work around her. She actually sounded sincere, and that was good enough for my boss. We exchanged pleasant farewells and then left for our next stop without making her call in a parking ticket on herself. And to keep up the flow, let's now dive into the title story, which is titled, Police Blew Up My House, Claims They Just Protected the Public. And by the way, Ripe stars, I actually found this story in a newspaper after reading about it on Reddit. So anyway, I never thought Colorado was the Wild West until now. I never imagined life could be like this. The American dream, right? Well, wrong. Just when you think you are safe, all hell breaks loose and you left tongue-tied on what to say or do. My parents growing up would always tell me to do what's right, but when the people who are put in charge and meant to protect us fail to do what they are supposed to, well, you better make sure you have a backup plan. I never thought in the spring of 2022 that my life would be turned over for the worse. I always believed that if you followed the rules, then you were less likely to get caught or severely punished, and I always believed that bad stuff only happened to bad people, like karma or something. And it never occurred to me that if I do everything right, I still could be screwed over. Even by the people who you think could not do such a thing, namely the police. It doesn't surprise a lot of people though, you hear it all the time in the news. Someone gets shot, another one gets beaten down, but a house blown to smithereens? Yeah, that's what happened to me. So basically here's what happened. Someone had robbed a Target a few miles from where I live in Colorado Springs. The cops chased them for an hour until the suspect gave up and rammed his pickup truck into my garage, seeking shelter and a place to hide. I was not home at the time, but my security cameras were rolling as usual. It was the freakiest thing ever when my security alarm goes off and my garage camera shows someone slamming into my house. It was almost like I could hear the shockwaves going through me when I replayed the footage on my phone, and I could hear the sirens go by me as I was picking my child up from school that day when it happened. What I didn't know was that the breaking into my garage was not the worst part, it was the standoff that happened later. So I put my little girl Julia in the car and she asks, "Daddy, is everything gonna be okay?" I looked at her with sullen eyes and responded, "Yes, hun, it's just the cops catching the bad guys." And I had no idea that these cops were heading for my home and about to do the most disastrous deed. That actually they were the bad ones. Crazy if you think about it. And we always think that we are safe, but we are really not. Anything could happen, and today it did. When I pulled around the corner to my street, the SWAT team was already in place. I hear a noise coming from all the way down the street, and it's the cops yelling. They had half the street blocked off, and I was not even allowed to get 500 feet near my mailbox. "Daddy, what is it?" I could see that my daughter was worried as a patrol officer stopped me in the middle of the street. I rolled down my window and said, "That's my house, what's going on?" The officer looked at me with no emotion and said, "Sir, we've got a situation right now and I'm going to have to ask you to pull back around and park away from this area." Of course, I knew what was going on because I had it on my cameras. Some idiot was trespassing on my property and refused to leave, which resulted in my house getting blown up. You see, I really thought the cops would do something, but instead they made the matters worse. So after an hour of bickering back and forth, I could hear them yelling at the suspect from outside my home. I couldn't hear the suspect talking, but I could see him in my home because my cameras were on. I was infuriated. He had guns, lots of them. I begged with the SWAT team to use the footage to their advantage, but they didn't listen to me. Instead, they refused to negotiate after multiple failed attempts at getting him out of my house. The standoff lasted almost 15 hours. And it failed entirely after I heard the loudest boom come from my home. The SWAT team detonated explosives, rupturing the foundation and the walls, resulting in my house being severely destroyed. What's worse is that I was watching all this like a helpless kid getting bullied and knocked around by the very ones that were supposed to protect me. Sounds like negligent abuse, and it is. I knew that the government could take your property through eminent domain. It is where if they are building a road or infrastructure for public use, they have every right to demolish it for their personal use, but I had no idea about the takings clause, which is in the Constitution and set up so that private property cannot be taken unless it is dealt with fair and just compensation. And I had no idea that the cops would get away with this nonsense. The moment I saw my house getting blown up and the police drive an armored vehicle through it, I almost entirely thought the police or the city would compensate me for destroying my home. And what's worse is that this suspect would probably be roaming the streets again after he serves his time. Who is to say that he's reformed or has changed while in prison? If anything, he should be the one to pay for the damages as well. When it was all over and the suspect was taken into custody, they found all kinds of drugs, stolen items and weapons inside my home. The house was completely destroyed and left me and my family homeless for quite some time. I pleaded with the city chief commissioner, and after they did nothing to compensate me, I went to a lawyer for help in pursuing a civil court case. A federal appeals court got involved too with the case, and I was not compensated anything. I even tried to get my homeowner's insurance to pay out for some of the damage. The most they were gonna offer was for the garage door. It was insane. I was completely livid. Apparently, the court claimed that the police were acting on their best interest and that of the public to protect themselves and everyone else nearby. I guess they thought that this man had the potential to blow up the whole neighborhood, so instead they just blew up my house. The only thing that was worth blowing up was the shed my neighbor built on my property, encroaching on it. I told him numerous times that it's in the way and on my property line, but he refused to move it over and over again. When the house got blown up, the shed was destroyed too. That's about the only thing that the cops did right in my eyes. Since the federal appeals court did pretty much nothing, I was forced to move with my family. We lived with my parents for about a year before our fundraising campaign to build back our home and life was realized. We had it set up and out of nowhere we received a big donation to the tune of $100,000. The community came together to support our family and some other donations rolled in too. We ended up building our home back and we got a new lease on life. Our family is safe now, but I never thought any of this would ever happen. Rest assured, I'm better now. I don't rely on cops anymore. I just rely on my gut instinct and intuition. I still carry guns, but I don't use them. This whole thing made me rethink about my life. At least I'm better and whole. I have my home, my family, and my sanity back. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I gotta say, this was one of the crazier stories. And if I would not have seen the news article accompanying this story, I probably would not have believed it. Absolutely insane conduct by the police. Anyway, the next one is titled, "My son is a thief and police got involved." And by the way, if you have watched until here and enjoy the stories about police, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment because that would help me tremendously. Right now, my brother is threatening to sue me for my son taking a figure from his collection and getting the police involved. So here's the story. Last week, my brother invited me and my family over for dinner. While we were there, my son asked to see my brother's collection of toys and figures, and my brother has spent a good deal of money on his collection, and from what I know, it's one of his biggest hobbies. Well, after dinner we left and everything seemed normal. Well, until yesterday. So my brother called me up furiously and told me my little shit stole something from his collection and I needed to return it immediately. I honestly was upset at this, but if my son had taken something that was wrong, especially if it was from my own brother, well, it turns out though that my son slipped away during dinner and took a Boba Fett figure from his collection. He confirmed it because he has footage from his porch camera of him taking it out to our car. I was furious and took it away from him. Here's the problem though, after I confirmed with my brother it was his, I found out that my son had removed it from its packaging. Apparently the figure is worth almost $2,000 in its package and almost nothing out of it. So my brother broke down over the phone and refused to take it back before hanging up. Well, he just called me again today and said he wanted me to pay for a replacement immediately or he will get the police involved and sue me. I told him I'd help pay for one but not fully, to which he said not good enough and hung up. Honestly, what are my options here? I cannot afford to pay him back right now. If he does go to the police, will my son get arrested? He's only 15. It was very wrong of him to do, but I think my brother is overreacting. What can I expect if he does take me to court or call the police? And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know what you think about this story so far. Would you say that if OP's brother really goes to the police or tries to sue OP, would the brother be the a-hole or not? Let me know what you think in the comments, and after you've done that, let's read an update to the story. So I never expected the barrage of support and hate. I would say these past 48 hours have been alright, and that post has not helped in any way. So why am I back? Well, because I feel like I need to be. I'm not here to give some apology to a bunch of internet strangers for how I acted or seek validation. I'm just here because I feel that for myself I need to admit my own wrongs and move on to a better place. So I want to talk about something first before I get into the update. Many people who responded talked about how me or my brother in a bad light, and with how I reacted in the comments, it did not really help the situation. I was also hit pretty hard for how I was not taking my brother into consideration when talking about the issue. To give some context for this, me and my brother have never had a good relationship, we have never seen eye to eye, and after our father's death he cut contact with me for a good amount of time. We are just too different in some senses. He is a single nerdy guy who has no aspiration for family, while I am the exact opposite. In these past few years we have tried to fix this, work as adults to bring what little family we have back together. During our time apart he began collecting old nerdy things, and I won't lie, I never understood the appeal. It is his life though, and he can do what he wants, so when my son stole and damaged his property, I didn't see how it was valuable to him and discounted it. But when he asked for $2,000 to fix it, I really didn't feel like it was worth it. Was this wrong of me? Maybe. I don't feel bad about defending my son, I only feel bad that I discounted my brother in the process. Sorry about that, like I said, I don't want sympathy. I only wrote that out to allow myself to be true about the situation, but back to the update. After all was said and done, my family had pretty much been thrown into the chaos. I had no idea what I was gonna do, and after talking with my wife, we decided we would take many of your advice and have my son pay him back. We collected all the non-essentials he had and planned to sell them to raise funds. During this time, I got back into contact with my brother and wanted to talk this out to make sure it didn't end badly. I also offered to pay in full, and also some people in the comments said that the figure was worth less, so I asked him. He had it professionally valued a few months ago when he bought it, and it was worth a total of $2,200. My brother said he plans to not sue us. His renter's insurance apparently is willing to pay him the value he has listed, but he would need to file a police report to get it. At first we agreed not to go that route and simply pay him the value of it or one for a replacement if he could get it cheaper. This was the plan until last night. During the process of taking his things away, my wife found a conversation he had with a friend he has over the internet. It turns out my son stole the figure to sell it. He had googled it while we were at my brother's house and found out how much it was worth and bragged to a friend that he was going to sell it at a pawn shop. He didn't realize that taking it out of the package would ruin it, so he ripped it out to hide it in the car better. Suffice to say, I'm not happy about this. I won't elaborate on this very much more, but me and my wife have decided that what is best for all of us is that we let him face the consequences of this. My brother is going to file a police report and collect money from insurance. Some may say this is a little bit harsh, but honestly, I think this might be for the best in the end. The way my son actively stole from family to make a profit worries me, and I believe the only option that I can live with myself making is this. I will stand by my son until the end, but he needs to learn now before he is an adult. So thank you for all the advice, the support and hate are what I needed as a true wake-up call. Like I said, I don't need pity, I'm doing this so that I can be true to myself and maybe become a better parent in the end. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. New temp employees kicked me out of the office. They did not realize I am the owner of the company. My company had a huge project and we were not hitting the milestones that we thought we would. Due to wanting to get the thing done on time without overworking the team, we decided to hire a team of 2 temporary workers that would come and help with the work. One was supposedly an engineer and the other one was a coder. We thought the 2 would be really helpful and we could get the project up and running on time and avoid any issues. I was overseas when they were hired, but I trusted my manager to do the hiring, and even after I got back and looked at the files, I agreed that on paper these 2 seemed like the best choice. And by the way guys, remember that the OP who is writing this story is actually the owner of the company. Anyway, my manager was actually out sick that day, but it was fine because my team knows how to work even if they don't have someone always overlooking what they do. An important note is that even though I am not at the office in the morning, I do have cameras for security that let me play everything back and let me know what was going on during the day after the fact. So the 2 guys arrived and meet the team normally before they start to just wander around for a while looking through everything. At one point they ask about manager and find out that he is not coming in because he is sick. Once they know it is just the team, their entire demeanor seems to change as they start to look over at the things my team is doing without actually lifting a finger. They start to joke and go on about how crappy this company is and how a project like this would take them half a day from start to finish. They seemed unable to stop bragging about other work that they have done for companies that I know are too big and powerful to need to hire temps for that level of work. They acted like total douchebags from all the footage that I saw, and at one point they both even went into my office. They started going through my desk and putting their feet up like they owned the place and thought they were better than me. That entire time they did not once lift a finger to do work on the project, and one of the team members even went up and asked when they were going to start doing the job they were hired for. One of them went on a tangent about how they couldn't do anything for this project because it was so stupid and never going to work anyway. The other started digging in on the team members about how they were so unqualified, and one talk with manager and the 2 of them could replace the entire team permanently. Now I was just getting to the office at this point and I knew at the time none of what transpired before I got there. They had nobody keeping tabs on them all morning and would be long gone before any kind of video was checked. These 2 had a chance to work the rest of the day and get away with it. Instead they decided they would continue thinking they were better than everyone else, including me. Now I am not very formal and let all my employees call me by my first name. To the 2 temps when I walked in and everyone else on the team spoke to me like that, they probably assumed that I was a member of the team that had not shown up yet. They started jumping down my throat and not letting me get a single word in about how if the manager was here, he would probably let me have it for not showing up for work until the afternoon. I then tried to just go to my office to try and get some kind of idea of what was going on. However, these 2 guys blocked me and told me that they were told by the manager not to let anyone in his office. Then they told me they were firing me on his behalf because they were going to be hired full-time after today anyway for just being that good. They started pushing me out of the front door and towards the parking lot, still not shutting up for 2 seconds about how great they are and how I was fired and I should not even try to contact the manager again. It was not until security spoke up that they finally stopped talking and found out the truth. Security, is there a problem here? Temp:
Yeah, this employee is fired and we need him escorted off the premises right away because we feel it is too dangerous to let him stick around.
Security: You want me to escort the owner of the company out of his own building? Temp:
This is not the owner is
manager's name. Me: Actually, he is the manager and works under me. I had asked him to hire 2 temps to help work on the project. So how about instead of running your mouth, you run far away from my property before I ask security to literally throw you out. Plus, I will be telling the agency that we hired you 2 from about this entire incident. Temp:
Look, I mean, we were just messing around. We know that you're a really chill kind of guy and we were just playing around. You know how it is with a small team and the new guys coming in just trying to make a connection.
Me: If they don't get off the property in the next 5 minutes, can you call the police and make sure that they are arrested for trespassing? Security: Sure thing, boss. You just go back inside. I promise that they are not going to get through these doors again. They finally deflated and had the faces of someone who royally messed up something. They got in their car and drove away with their heads down and their mouth finally closed. Even without the tapes, my team told me what had happened, and mainly the fact that the 2 of them did not do a single thing except insult them and the project. With the 2 temps doing nothing, they were further behind than I would have liked, but I understood that they all had a rough morning. I told them that we would do whatever we could today and I would personally stay late and try to finish off anything we couldn't. You can bet that after seeing the video, I sent proof to the agency just how those 2 acted, and I have a feeling they will not be getting any jobs that way again. So much for acting better than everyone else, only to end up not being able to get another job when they are exposed for being the worst kind of people. I'm not surprised they did not have a permanent position somewhere though, because I don't know anybody who would deal with them for more than half a day. And yeah guys, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on all major podcast platforms such as Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. Furthermore, you can find bonus content by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or by clicking the join button here on YouTube. For a small monthly fee, you will get access to dozens and dozens of exclusive videos you won't find anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again tomorrow.